All right, cool. So last live, I got into something I wasn't really thinking of getting into. I wasn't expecting to get into, and I opened the door within myself, and I didn't get to let out as much as I wanted to. So I'm gonna expand on it. Insanity. We'll start with this quote, that's supposedly from Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Now, I was explaining in the last live how, in many cases, that could be true. If you're doing something stupid over and over again and you expect something smart to come out of it, it's not going to work, most likely. However, when you take up a task of, say, improving your health and fitness, and let's say you start with 500 push ups, maybe you start with 100 or 200 or 300 and work your way up to 500 per day. While you're doing this, if you expect to immediately get swole arms and your chest to be sculpted and your abs to turn into a six pack overnight when you've been eating Twinkies and fucking Doritos for years and years on end, obviously that's insane. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna happen. However, the point that I brought in was if you look at it over a span of time and you expect over a span of a certain period of time, let's say 1 month, 6 months, for your body to transform, for your body to start to sculpt to what you want it to be, then it's not so insane. Then you're looking at the aspect of discipline and persistence, right? So I started talking about neural pathways and how, as you start doing the thing, you start carving out these neural pathways easier and easier, or to where the action gets easier and easier. And for the impulses to travel through those neural pathways, it actually travels faster and faster as you continue to practice a thing. You can even look at, like, for example, practicing playing an instrument. When you're playing an instrument at first, like I know the first time I picked up a piano, or not picked up a piano, goddamn. The first time I put my hands on a piano and tried to play, it was clunky, everything was off key, all these things. But as I began to get acclimated with some of the keys and what they sound like, then I can make tones and notes that I wanted to appear. Same thing when I was in my I think I was maybe, I don't know, 19, 20, 21, and I bought an acoustic guitar. It was the same thing then. As I started to play the guitar more, I actually started to be able to create melodies and mimic melodies of songs that I liked and things that I enjoyed. It actually brought me quite a bit of peace. I kind of miss that guitar. Um, but as I it got to the point to where after I spent a certain amount of time with this guitar, first of all, I became faster at playing the same melodies and the same chords, etc. And second of all, I started to be able to detect by ear. So let's say I was listening, like at that time, I was pretty heavy into like heavy metal and progressive metal, you know, not like the mainstream rock and roll, but a lot of stuff like that. And I would listen to certain guitar riffs, and I really enjoyed listening to them. Bands like Death, like Megadeth, like Iron Maiden, Iced Earth, that sort of stuff. And sometimes they would shift out of their like heavy riffing, and they would have these acoustic songs that I really liked. So I would try to emulate these. And over time, as I started to continue getting my fingers acclimated to playing on that acoustic guitar, I can find the keys and the chords that they were playing. And lo and behold, I was able to play some of them. This is how the neural pathways work. As you start to practice and intentionally put time and focus into a thing, you get better at it by default. So no, it's not entirely insane to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result over a long time frame. Now, the thing is, as you start to do that thing over and over again, you'll start to learn to correct yourself. You'll start to learn new ways to play. You'll start to learn more efficient ways to play. You'll start to learn, like for that guitar example, you'll start to learn how to um, how to stroke the keys, or how to hit certain keys and hold your hands in certain positioning so that playing for you becomes easier, so it becomes faster, etc. And I'll give another example that's kind of similar to this. Whoops. Do I play reggae? No, I don't. I do. I'm a fan of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and those kind of things. I used to listen to a lot of that too, but I don't really listen to that as much anymore, as I should. I do every now and then. Like I'll put my kids on the old tones and stuff, sing it with them and stuff like that. But I don't honestly like that. When I was really at reggae, I used to smoke an excessive amount of weed. Now I don't smoke any weed anymore, so it doesn't really. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't really resonate with me as much anymore, even though it's a lot more than weed smoke. I know, obviously, but nah, I don't play reggae. Um, so I'll talk from. All right, let me talk from the perspective of something I do now. I rap, right? When I first started writing songs and performing my songs to myself in my room, I noticed that, like, because I had spent so many years sculpting my pen anyway, I've been writing poems and stuff since I was like 10 years old, maybe even earlier than that. And even before that, when I was 7 or 8 or 9, I had a big boom box. A lot of y'all don't even know what the fuck that is. A boom box to where I had it plugged up in my room, and I would put in a CD, or I'll put in a cassette tape of my favorite rapper at the time. Maybe it was DMX, or maybe it was Eminem or Ludacris or Mystical. I would put in their songs, and then I would go and I would start looping their songs over and over again to continue practicing delivering the song the way that they delivered it, right? So I would literally transcribe this before, really, like, it was dial-up days, right? So like we did have like AI bots that we could just insert the MP3 in and have it spit out the lyrics. That wasn't happening. So I was writing these lyrics myself, and I would try to perform it along with them as I played the song, right? This was kind of like the advent of, I guess, me becoming a rapper. So as I got older and I started writing my own songs when I was, maybe 19, 20, 21. And at this time, I start, I realized at this point, my pen is kind of like ahead of how fast my mouth can move, right? Like there were certain rhyme schemes and stuff that I wanted to do then, or certain flow patterns I wanted to do then that I wasn't capable of doing yet because I hadn't got the practice in, right? So as I continued to practice and I continued to go through this process of, writing down new rhymes and then reciting them over and over and over again. I would do it 100 times, 200 times, like easily. I've gone on live before and showed myself do, I don't know, like 50 or 60 takes in a row within the span of like 20 minutes, trying to get 30 seconds of a song right? So like now I know what it takes to get in that zone. But as I started getting into that process, I started noticing that I could start rhyming faster now. Okay, now I can kind of make my flow like a machine gun, and I could and then I started learning about breath control, and then I started learning how to switch my flows and still be able to keep the tempo without jumping into another take, all these kind of things. This is that process of disciplining oneself into perfecting a certain craft, right? And it goes the same for what I found across the board for any craft that you pick up. It could be video editing and video production. As you start learning how to, get better with your cuts and cutting out pauses and ums and ahs and, deep breaths and all these kind of things, then your cuts get smoother. And then as you start learning to overlay B-roll and overlay text and all these kind of different elements to go into good video production, the timing, aligning music along with it that goes with the track or with the video, right? As you continue to do this over and over and over again, and at this point, like, I've literally produced, I don't know, tens of thousands of videos, maybe hundreds of thousands, over just last like 3 years. As you continue to do this over a certain span of time, you will start to get better at it. You will start to get that result that you set out to get, right? So this is, to me, this is kind of what discipline is about, right? We're talking about discipline. and the difference between discipline and insanity, which I think is a thin line. What's up? Yeah, and you're right. Practice does make perfect. So let me ask y'all something. What is something in your life, let's say in the last 5 years, that you've set out to do, you've set out to achieve, or set out to learn, that you put in consistent focus on doing over a span of time? Drop it in the chat. Yes, sir. Reggae mellitus, and yeah, I hear maybe there's some truth with that. Yep. Yeah, yeah. Weed and reggae is a very interesting combination. Not that I don't, now, let me be clear, I don't advocate smoking weed. I actually don't advocate smoking at all. It was just a part of my life for, about 13 years. And, so I understand those of you who may partake in that habit. I understand kind of some of the mindsets and things that you may be drawn to while you're doing it, but I personally don't advocate for it. Let me tell you an interesting story though. I'm from Florida, right? And a lot of my heritage and lineage is, what people call like foundational Black Americans, blah blah blah. I don't really subscribe to that. As I started to dig deeper, there's a lot of Native American roots, so Cherokee, Blackfoot. My father's half Puerto Rican, so I got Taino tribe in me, all that kind of stuff. So I found it like I'm basically entirely Native American for the most part in my heritage. And me being growing up in the hood, there was in Florida, because Florida's kind of close to the islands, the Caribbeans and stuff like that, there was a lot of Jamaicans around. So I had like family members that had like Jamaican spouses and Jamaican friends and stuff like that. And as I was growing up, I didn't know what the fuck they were saying when they started, when they would talk and they would try to talk to me. I was just like, huh? Yeah, right? Lo and behold, as I got into like, I don't know, I was maybe like 19 or 20. And this is when I was around the time I started smoking. So, obviously my mental patterns started shifting a bit. And I got into a conversation with these same Jamaican, extended family members. And I understood everything the fuck they were saying. I was like, oh, I get it now. I hear you. I understand every word. So there's like these different frequencies that people operate on. A lot of time that's the difference in these language dialects. Yeah, so anyway. The last 5 years, I've developed the ability to play reggae music. After 10 years of playing other music, reggae did help me feel I get out of funky times. Yeah, I'm laying off the THC myself. Respect. Yep. Yeah, and it'll definitely do that. If you kind of the type of person that struggles with having like too much isolation, or you're having a hard time people feel like people understand you or anything like that. I mean, you do what you feel called to come out of that space and to find ways to express yourself that maybe people can relate to better. I just encourage, like, when it comes to like taking in substances in your body, like people that drink, like I haven't drank in years. Like I couldn't even really tell you the last time that I went and bought a bottle of something and drank it, or went out to a party and did that. Um, when you cut that type of shit out of your life, you'll see that your thinking improves dramatically. Like I'm the type of person where I've always thought at quite a high frequency, and I've always been kind of advanced, even as like a child, stuff like that, gifted studies and AP classes and blah blah blah. So when I took on weed after I graduated high school, it was kind of like I was like, I can already think ahead of most people, so I can keep up. Like even while I'm high, I'm probably thinking at a higher level than most people. And to be honest, in most cases it was true. But on the same token, as I started working my way out of this particular habit, and spending more and more time away from it, I realized that it was a crutch in a way, and it was I was using it as kind of like leverage, for example, to get into the flow of rapping, rather than just picking up the pen and turning on a beat and write it and get into it. Or I would use it as a way to escape from dealing with certain difficulties and traumas and stuff like that I was dealing with. and it just wasn't ideal. It wasn't optimal, right? Like, because what happens when you don't have it? What happens when you don't have the money to, go out and get an AFI? Or what happens when you hit up all the plugs and all the plugs are dry? Or what happens where if you got a medical card like I have for a certain period of time, what happens when you run out of your allotment? Or what happens when your card expires? Like, what are you going to do then, right? You got to have the tools within yourself to be able to utilize it, to be able to utilize these capabilities and traits that you have with, like, regardless in any circumstances, right? So I always encourage anybody, and this will be the same conversation I have with my children once they become of age, all these things. I would encourage everybody to avoid those kind of substances, and if you already have them, just try to put them down. Try putting it down for a week. See what happens. You might not want to pick it back up again. Yep. I've been choosing isolation. Yeah, I'm in the Space Coast, so I'm actually pretty close to Cape Canaveral. I've been choosing isolation because there's a lot of egos everywhere and shit. So I choose to keep the peace in my home. And yeah, now I'm 30. Now alcohol always made things work. Yep. And isolation is necessary to a sense, because through isolation you can find and discover parts of yourself that maybe you wouldn't have been able to discover when you were all in the mix of everybody, having everybody in your face and stuff. And I keep referring back to this time frame because these were definitely the formative years for me, as far as in my lifetime. After um, let's say around, like, I think it was like maybe 21, I dove. I decided to pull out of college, and this is partially because yeah, other circumstances to that, but it was a decision I made. I decided to pull out of college, and I just fully focused every single day on learning and practicing yoga, different forms of meditation. I started practicing ninjutsu. People look at me crazy when I say that, and they're like, "Oh, that's like." Nah, I really practiced that shit. I really stumbled across some scrolls and started practicing the techniques they were talking about. I started practicing Taoist meditations, and that was when I really got deep into writing and reflecting and all these kind of things. And it was to the point to where, for, I would say, probably about 2-3 years, every single day I was going outside on my yoga mat, and I would go through practicing meditation, doing yoga, maybe do some kung fu to round it off. Or I would do yoga, do some kung fu, and then grab my blades and I would practice some kendo, or something to that effect. I would always be out there for like anywhere from 45 minutes or an hour to like sometimes 3 to 6 hours, just discovering new things in myself. Just trying new poses, trying new ways to breathe. It got to the point to where I saw so many things start to transform, and I started unlocking so many things that some of these things really used to fucking scare me. Like, I had to pull back because it was too potent and then too drastic. Things were changing too quickly for me to really like accept, I guess you could say. So, like, one thing, for example, as I got really deep into meditation and certain breathing techniques, I found myself slipping to this flow where I was taking about one breath every 30 seconds. And I could feel my body do that. And I'm sitting inside my body, and I'm paying attention to what's happening. I feel my body shift into this flow to where I'm inhaling, and there's a very deep inhale, and it's about 15 seconds. And then the exhale is about another 15 seconds. And then there's stillness other than that, right? When you do this kind of breath work and meditations, it changes the chemistry of your entire body and your entire brain. It not only will you notice the difference, you'll go out into the world and you'll go out around your family, and they will notice the difference. They'll see a glow on you. They'll feel something coming from you that they didn't recognize before, right? That may not be the path for everyone. Like, for example, when I started practicing those ninjutsu breathing techniques and certain motions and mudras and stuff like that, after a little while practicing, I felt so much power cultivated in my legs because, like, the Japanese, they sit on their knees, right? So when you do that, it's really a very optimal way to sit. Like, as I kind of move forward, it's something that I'm going to teach my family to do. So, like, at least for dinner time, we can be sitting that way comfortably. But when I got really deep into the shit, I felt so much power in my legs that I felt like if there was someone that ran up to me or was standing in front of me, I would be able to kick them through the wall, through a fucking concrete wall 10 feet away. Like, it was so much power in my legs. And then, as I would stand up and I would practice kicks, I'm like, holy shit, I'm kicking way the fuck over my head. Oh, wow. Right? And it's you kind of uncover these things that you might not be mentally prepared for, right? So my point is, when you go into isolation, whatever you do, you don't have to like do all this crazy ninjutsu shit or like super meditation. It might just be, sitting in a dark room for a bit and, breathing for 30 minutes and then turn on a lamp and, grab a pen and start writing what thoughts come out, right? It might be journaling. It might be visualization. Whatever you kind of feel called to, just be expected or expect for changes to occur that you may not necessarily have expected, if that makes sense. All right. Yeah, mindfulness and yoga meditation is key. Yep. If I would give a suggestion to you, Brandon, on that, boxing and shadow boxing is very good as well. If I can give you a suggestion on that, there's a book by a man named Stephen Covey, Stephen. His last name Covey. It was a book called Yoga and the True Self. This kind of breaks down a lot of the because basically he went to like a yoga retreat, just breaking away from his corporate life, and just went, and he ended up transforming so much in there. He ended up just quitting his job and what he was doing, and he started living there full time, and he became an instructor and all these kind of things. But he talks a lot about the process that people go through when they practice things like yoga. I would definitely recommend this book. I think it was, I don't know, it might have been written in like the early 2000s, like 05 or something like that. But very, very good book. And then just find, a type of yoga flow, because there's all these different types: hatha yoga, vinyasa yoga, power yoga, all these things. I started with hatha yoga because I wanted to kind of like refine my energy pathways and kind of tone my body a bit. So just pick a discipline and just start following along with the practice of it. Some things aren't for everybody. Some things that you see out there may not be for you. Like yoga might not even be the thing. You might need to look at a different discipline and practice of breath work and meditation. But basically just kind of get some fundamental understanding or understanding about it, and then move into actually practicing it, and then just keep going. Just keep going. That's all you got to do. I just quit construction and lots of changes on my life now. Got to practice some yoga. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're taking care of the things that you got to take care of. Anyway, you don't want to quit construction and end up on the streets. So as long as you got a way to continue tending to yourself and tending to your duties and things, tending to your household as a man, that's very important to do that. So real quick, I just kind of remembered a thought that I wanted to say on the last live about this whole process of transforming oneself, right? You mentioned boxing, Brandon. You guys, y'all probably have seen that video of like the guy who was the girl was recording him in his sleep, and he started like shadow boxing in his sleep, and he's and then he basically like just went like and went back into a deep sleep as if he just got knocked out. That's a very, very real thing and a very real process. Once you get into the habit of doing a thing and picking up a new thing and like really getting involved into it, I've heard it said that a lot of world champion fighters, like boxers, kickboxers, that sort of stuff, they practice so much that they start having dreams about having fights. So they'll have so many sparring matches and so many training sessions. In their dreams, they're literally having sparring matches and training sessions. It's just like that guy in that meme. And it gets when scientists go to, like, study them, and they'll study their brain patterns and stuff like that while they're dreaming, and involved in these sparring matches in their dreams. They actually are continuing to learn as they're doing it. So they'll literally wake up a better fighter because they practiced it through the night, and went through that whole process, and then continue to do it through the day. So sometimes, it's a matter of immersion for a certain period of time. um, yeah, so I got to go ahead and wrap it up. I got some places I got to go to. But I appreciate y'all hopping on. Make sure you subscribe. I'll be popping on here every now and then. I got some exciting stuff coming out. Soul Rising album is in stores. You can check it out on my channel, or you can hit the link in the description, samuraiblackmusic.com, and get all the streaming links. You can grab some merch, all that kind of stuff. Tap in with me on other platforms. I have a music video that I'm in the process of getting together, and of course the Mileage album and Mileage movie companion film are both on the way as well. Hadou Sashug, that's divine love. Peace. Wadu.